There's a quiet kind of pain that doesn't scream. It doesn't show up in breakdowns or tears. It shows up in how you try too hard, in how you stay up late replaying conversations, wondering if you said something wrong, in how you laugh a little louder, smile a little longer, hoping someone might finally see you. It's the ache of wanting to be wanted, and it starts earlier than most people realize. When you're a child, love isn't something you understand. It's something you breathe. The tone in your mother's voice when you talk, the way your father looks at you when you bring him something you made. You don't know what attention is yet, but your body knows how it feels to be invisible. That's where the story begins for most of us. Not in adulthood, not in heartbreak, but in those small, quiet moments when we learn that love wasn't guaranteed. Maybe you were the kid who had to earn it. Get good grades, be polite, make people laugh, keep the peace. You didn't just want to be loved, you had to deserve it. And that's where something subtle happens inside the human heart. When love becomes conditional, attention becomes oxygen. You start measuring your worth in the reflection of someone else's eyes. And even when you grow up, that old wiring never really leaves. You can see it in the way adults chase validation, like children holding up drawings saying, "Look what I did. Do you like it?" Different setting. Same question. Do I matter to you? The need to feel wanted isn't weakness. It's one of the oldest human instincts. Evolutionary psychology even supports this. Belonging and acceptance were survival tools. Being wanted meant being part of a tribe, being protected. Rejection meant isolation, and isolation meant danger. Our nervous systems still remember that. That's why being ignored can hurt as much as physical pain. Literally. Brain scans show that social rejection activates the same regions that process physical pain. So when you say, "that hurt," you're not being metaphorical. You're describing something biologically real. But somewhere along the way, this survival instinct became an emotional currency. We started trading parts of ourselves to feel seen. We began bending who we are to fit what others might want us to be. It's subtle. You might not even notice when you're doing it. You agree to things you don't believe in. You laugh at jokes that don't land. You say it's fine when it isn't. And you call it kindness or maturity or keeping the peace. But deep down, it's the child in you whispering, "If I make them happy, maybe they won't leave." And the truth is, that voice doesn't go away just because you get older. You just learn to dress it up. You call it ambition. You call it service. You call it being dependable. But what you're really chasing is that old feeling of being needed. There's a moment in every person's life when they realize they've been performing for love. You look back and see all the times you tried to fix yourself so you could finally be chosen. You remember the silence after a text you sent too vulnerably. You remember standing in a room full of people but feeling invisible anyway. That's when it hits you. You've been chasing mirrors, not connection, because being wanted and being understood are not the same thing. Most of us settle for the first one because it's easier to get. We think if someone wants us, that means they see us. But sometimes they only see the version of us that pleases them, and we mistake that attention for love. We've all been there. You meet someone and suddenly you feel alive again, like all the invisible parts of you are finally being seen. But then, as time passes, you realize they didn't fall in love with your soul. They fell in love with your reflection of their desire. You gave them what they needed to feel wanted too. It's mutual emptiness disguised as connection. And it's not anyone's fault. We all carry that same hunger. To matter, to be chosen, to be enough. Some people chase it through relationships. Some through success. Some through helping others. But the root is the same. We want someone to look at us and say, "You don't have to do anything. You already matter." But most of us never heard that. Not from our parents, not from our teachers, not from the world. So we built our entire lives trying to earn a sentence that should have been unconditional. Sometimes you'll notice it in the smallest things. How your mood depends on someone's reply. How silence feels like punishment. How a compliment can change your whole day. You think you're just being sensitive, but no, you're responding to the old emotional economy of childhood. When you were small, every approval meant safety. Every rejection meant danger. So you learned to read faces like maps. You studied tone, timing, energy. You learned when to speak and when to stay quiet. That's emotional survival, and many people never outgrow it. Psychologists often call this attachment conditioning. It's the way our earliest emotional experiences create invisible patterns that shape how we relate to love, work, and identity. If you had to earn love as a child, you'll probably keep earning it as an adult, even when nobody's asking you to. That's why people stay in draining relationships. That's why people overwork themselves just to be noticed. That's why so many of us mistake attention for affection. We don't really want fame. We don't really want validation. We want the emotional equivalent of being held as a child, the feeling that someone sees us completely and stays. But here's where things get complicated, because once you start chasing that feeling externally, you lose control of it. Your peace becomes dependent on how someone else sees you, and that's the most fragile form of happiness. Imagine holding a balloon filled with your self-worth, but someone else is holding the string. You can only feel good when they decide to hold on. That's what happens when your sense of worth is borrowed instead of built. The paradox is that the more you need to be wanted, the more you lose the very things that make you worth wanting. You start shrinking your truth. You hide your opinions. You tone down your light so you don't make others uncomfortable. And over time, you forget who you were before you started performing. That's why people say things like, "I don't know who I am anymore." Because when you spend years being what others want, you become a collection of reactions instead of a person. But here's the beautiful irony. The moment you stop trying to be wanted, you become magnetic. When you stop chasing validation, you radiate it. People can feel when you're no longer auditioning for their approval. There's something powerful about quiet self-acceptance. It disarms people. It makes them trust you. Because in a world full of performers, authenticity feels like peace. Still, let's be honest, letting go of that need isn't easy. You can't just tell your inner child, "Stop caring what people think." That child still remembers the nights they felt unseen. They still remember trying to make someone proud and watching them look away. So healing it means reparenting yourself. It means learning to give yourself what you once begged for. To whisper to your younger self, "You're safe now. You don't have to earn love anymore." When you start doing that, something incredible happens. You stop needing others to fill that gap, and instead, your relationships become about sharing love, not proving it. That's the quiet transformation that nobody tells you about. The moment when you stop chasing worth and start embodying it. But getting there takes awareness. It takes catching yourself in those small moments of seeking. When you refresh your phone waiting for a reply. When you bend your truth to avoid conflict. When you give more than you have just to keep someone close. Those are the tiny clues pointing to the bigger wound. And here's the thing, it's not shameful to need to feel wanted. It's human. It's one of the purest expressions of our shared fragility. Even the strongest, most confident people you know carry that same hidden wish. To matter to someone, to be remembered, to feel like their presence makes a difference. What matters is not erasing that need. It's understanding it. Because once you understand it, you stop letting it control you. You stop being afraid of being alone. You stop trying to impress people who don't even notice your effort. And slowly the balance shifts. You begin choosing people who choose you back. You begin creating rather than performing. You begin realizing that being wanted is not the goal. Being whole is. The older you get, the more you realize that most people aren't chasing success or status or even love. They're chasing significance. That quiet assurance that their existence means something, that they matter in the vast, crowded, unpredictable world. And that's what the need to feel wanted really is. A longing for proof that you're not invisible, that your presence ripples through someone's life in a way that makes them softer, safer, or more alive. But the problem is, when you base your worth on being wanted, you give that proof to someone else to hold. And people, even the good ones, are inconsistent. They get busy, they get distracted, they change, and when they do, it can feel like your worth disappears with them. That's why so many people confuse being wanted with being loved. Because wanted feels immediate, it feels warm. It's that text that lights up your screen. It's the call that comes when you are starting to give up. But wanted is temporary. It's emotional gravity that fades when attention shifts. Love, though, love is quieter. It doesn't shout your name, it stays even when no one's watching. But most of us never learn to wait for that kind of love, because the world teaches urgency. It teaches you to prove yourself quickly, to keep people interested, to earn your place in someone's life before they replace you. So we keep running, we keep performing, we keep holding on to the illusion that if someone wants us badly enough, it'll heal everything that came before. But it never does, because attention can't fix what neglect created. It can only distract you from it for a little while. There's a saying in psychology that what isn't healed gets repeated. And you can see that truth in how people fall for the same patterns again and again. The same emotionally distant partners, the same friendships where you give and give until you disappear. It's not weakness, it's repetition. Your heart keeps trying to rewrite an old story, hoping that this time the ending will be different. And maybe that's what growing up really is. Realizing that no one else can rewrite it for you. You can't make your parents see the effort you made to be good. You can't make that friend finally notice the ways you showed up. You can't force someone to choose you with the same intensity you choose them. You can only learn to sit in the silence they left behind and not let it define you anymore. That silence is heavy, but it's also sacred, because it's in that space where something profound begins to happen. You start realizing that the love you kept searching for was never supposed to come from someone else first. It was supposed to start inside you, not in a self-help cliché way, but in a deeply human way. When you begin treating yourself like someone worth wanting, your entire emotional landscape changes. You stop begging for attention and start commanding it through authenticity. You stop performing for love and start radiating it naturally, because nothing is more magnetic than someone who has made peace with themselves. That's what emotional maturity looks like. Not pretending you don't care, but caring in a way that doesn't destroy you. You still want connection, but you no longer crumble without it. You still want to be wanted, but you don't bend your soul to fit someone else's definition of lovable. And that shift is subtle but revolutionary. It's the difference between saying, "I hope they want me," and "I hope I stay true to myself even if they don't." The truth is, when you stop seeking to be wanted, you start attracting people who actually see you. Because they're not drawn to the performance, they're drawn to the peace. They feel the steadiness in you, and they trust it. And when two people meet from that place, it's no longer about filling emptiness, it's about creating meaning together. But even then, the need to feel wanted doesn't disappear entirely. It just evolves. It becomes less about validation and more about contribution. Less, "Do you see me?" and more, "Can I add something good to your life?" That's the beautiful paradox. The moment you no longer chase being wanted, you begin wanting others in the purest way, not to complete you, not to heal you, but simply because love, when it's not desperate, becomes generous. Still, the ghosts of the old need visit sometimes. Maybe you'll scroll through your messages and feel that sting of being forgotten. Maybe you'll walk into a room and feel like you don't belong. Maybe you'll still wish, just once, that someone would look at you the way you've always looked at others. And when that happens, be kind to yourself. Because healing isn't about erasing those moments. It's about understanding them. That ache isn't weakness, it's memory. It's your heart remembering what it was like to go unseen and asking for reassurance that it won't be abandoned again. So give it that reassurance. Pause, breathe, remind yourself that you're no longer that child waiting for a nod of approval. You're the one holding your own gaze now. You're the one who gets to decide that you matter. And when you do, life starts to feel different. You begin to notice the quiet things, the sunlight on your skin, the warmth of a conversation that doesn't demand anything, the way you can sit alone and still feel full. You realize that being wanted was never the highest form of love. Being at peace with yourself is. Most people spend their entire lives trying to be seen by others. Very few ever learn how to see themselves clearly. But the ones who do, they move through the world differently. Their happiness isn't negotiable. Their worth isn't conditional. Their presence feels grounded, calm, unshakable. And ironically, those are the people everyone ends up wanting. Not because they're chasing attention, but because they embody something everyone else is searching for. Inner stability. It's not loud, it's not performative. It's quiet, but it's undeniable. You see it in the way they speak, in how they no longer argue to prove their value, in how they can walk away from people who don't choose them without closing their heart. That's real strength, not the kind that dominates, but the kind that stays soft in a hard world. And that's what happens when you stop needing to feel wanted. You start becoming whole enough to want others for who they are, not what they give you. You stop taking love personally. You stop taking rejection as proof of your inadequacy. You start realizing that people's capacity to love you is more about them than it ever was about you. That realization is freedom, because once you see it, you stop measuring your worth in someone else's hands. You stop chasing love like it's a prize and start living like it's your nature. You were born wanted, not because someone said so, not because you earned it, but because existence itself wanted you here. You're made of the same stardust that forms galaxies. You were never a mistake. You were never an accident. You were the universe's way of expressing itself uniquely, once in all of time. That's what being wanted really means. It's not about being liked, praised, or remembered. It's about remembering yourself, remembering that your life as it is right now has meaning. You don't have to chase that meaning in someone's eyes. You already carry it in your heartbeat. And maybe that's the quiet truth most people spend their whole lives trying to find. You don't need to be wanted to be worthy. You just need to be here, fully, courageously, unapologetically here. Because when you finally stop asking, do I matter to them? And start asking, how can I matter to myself and the world around me? Everything changes. That's when the story shifts. From survival to creation, from approval to authenticity, from being wanted to being whole. And maybe, in the end, that's what love was meant to teach us all along. Not how to be chosen, but how to choose ourselves completely without condition.